shit.
You will hear volume. 1, 2. Why are we hearing sound out of this? Now you should be able to hear. Okay, 1, 2. 1, 1. 1, 1. Ask her if she can hear. No, she's not even on now. This is P. Humphrey. They're not even in the chat. She's connected to the meeting, huh? Ms. Humphrey, are you hearing us okay now? Behavior is our. Everyone should be able to hear me. Are we all good? Does everyone hear properly? One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yep. Good. This should in fact share.
should all be in PowerPoint, all of it. It's very tough to say share. It's much tougher to do it this way. I can do it, but it's much tougher.
Oh, I'm laughing because I'm going holy.
This is why, thank God I brought this, but
Yeah.
all of this should be in there, all of it.
All of the presentation pieces. Any material that they want to share.
Mm-hmm. All of it should be in there, all of it. I'm tempted to just put it in there. What is this? No.
It's up.
No, I'm not doing software update now.
Isn't that weird how it always sneaks that, the critical moment to do it?
Yeah, it makes me nervous to do it like this. This is why you get all these materials in advance. Everything should have been in here, divided as how he needed it.
Of
And he
course.
did.
And he was asking.
This is much, much harder.
Should we try and put it in PowerPoint? We got JPEGs, so we have images, right? Is her stuff in
This is
a
much, much harder.
Is her stuff in a PowerPoint?
Yeah, it's
Then
in
we
my
could just-
PowerPoint,
Why
I'm
don't we
done.
why don't we just add in 2 more pages? And paste those documents into her PowerPoint. Because we've already got PowerPoint built, so. And she's not getting this back, this is now resident on her sheet, right?
And this he needed from here, this page right here.
Yeah, items A through H.
A through H.
Well, that's the whole heart of executive, so we eliminated, this.
Yeah, I know, but
At that point, you just have the document and everyone's gonna have comments. But I guess he was presenting to the viewers.
where is it? Miller Jonathan, right here.
Should be like on the very top, unless I got it, so. Which is awesome. Watch the letter.
Which one was he using first?
Don't know.
This one right here. He wanted A through H, right?
That's the executive order on this.
This.
Oh, yeah, right. Interesting. See, look at this, it's not the same thing. Executive order, that's
This.
I was just leave the whole document in there, just zoom down on it, or make it a little smaller so you see the whole document.
No, what we want to do.
Insert page,
Can't.
you can put PowerPoint. Don't need export. You've got the images on the desktop. So you go into PowerPoint, you go to the last slide, and then you choose insert, or there'll be it up on the side, you can't see it. It's the menu. For the- Blank.
Yeah.
And then copy and paste your JPEG into that. Not that, just the one you copied on your desktop. Or you can drag it in and it'll open the window. I don't think so. Try.
No,
Right into this, you can't.
cannot. Oh, you can. Okay, there's that.
And you can create a new page or another slide and put the other on.
It's so small.
Well, you can, now you can, yeah, you can't do that. You should be able to click on the handle, either crop the image.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
It's a JPEG, you should have, image manipulation tools. I know PowerPoint pretty well.
No,
I've never
there's-
said.
Okay, see if you can get them all in there, because it's gonna be much easier to do like this than doing screen sharing. What you need to do is copy that text and paste it into blank slides. Yeah, but how do you know?
How do I know what?
I don't think this is right, but you're the man, that's not gonna do it.
I know.
What you need to do, Scott, look,
I'm trying to crop the whole image, not just squeeze it. And so I don't have my handle on there's the crop controls.
how do you know he doesn't need that text at the top?
He was just looking for items A through H on the executive order. I don't
Here,
know what.
here's the way to do this, look, man. Take this slide out. And then what we need to do,
The blank slide to insert your new graphic into, so,
I know,
well, you might just copy
what I'm
text.
saying is, this right here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he wants or where he wants it in.
Watch. ended with antisemitism in the Commonwealth. And what we want to do is we want to take another screenshot. This. There's that. This ended with I. The next slide. This ends with R. God, I hate doing this shit at the last second. We don't know that this is right for him. Well, you're giving him a full document. He's gonna have to advance through the slides again with section points. That's way more than. That's not this one. Should see that. No, that's the wrong one, right?
Just about to say, yeah.
It's this one.
Is that it?
6. This is what's one.
Right. 6 months.
Break it into 2.
Yeah, it's too much. I would think.
E or D? No, E. went through D. Is that everything in this document?
Now, we have, is there that other document, which is
Yeah. Another one.
the executive order? It's another page.
What was the executive? That's this one.
It's the same page.
Where is it?
Track on the desktop, but it's on track on the left.
This one? Yep,
It's this.
it's this. I already got that,
Oh, okay.
right?
Oh, good, below, keep going down.
This is what he wanted, right? He needs all of this.
Yeah, where the hell did this go?
That's, we already got that. Look, that's this, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's,
Hold on, start from the beginning.
see, I don't have the other document, we didn't get to that. This is all I have.
Let me see, this is Secretary of State. Now therefore, boom, boom, boom. Identifying and acknowledging the growing
Yeah, I'll see.
threat.
Let's see the map that works.
This, okay. Yeah,
Okay, good. So we need to,
now I just need to do these. This line. Seventeen.
going to write on a piece of paper the order of his slides so he knows what we did with which.
17. Through 27.
Okay, here's some random pieces of paper, I'll let you.
13.
Hey, Mark, are we doing it 2 or 2:30?
2:30.
Okay, I'm not going to be able, it's too late. I'm not going to be able to make it at all then. All right, thank you.
No worries. Sorry you can't make it.
You bet.
Can we trim the volume for that Zoom interaction?
Sure. Eighteen.
Last section should go up there.
KRS 3344. That's through 27.
You're probably get rid of the unofficial copy at the top.
I hate doing this at the last minute. This is why, you see why I say that? I knew for a fact that this was gonna come into play.
I would have been in order.
I knew it was gonna come into play. I knew it. It always, it never fails. New slide. This now has to be this one. Save.
That's nice. That's right. Crop image. Where is crop? Is that a picture format? Picture format.
It's here.
What's the crop right in the mark up? Picture.
Oh, what's that?
It's hard.
Now, he's gonna have to check this.
And see, so he understands the order, delete the slides he doesn't want. This is just their paper.
Close your mail. Leave those documents open. Don't close them in case I have to share from here too.
Why is it, see,
No.
gotcha. like last minute panic scramble. It wasn't a panic scramble, but it was a scramble.
I hate that stupid shit.
No, we have no presentations, nobody has any documents. No PowerPoints.
Now he could just use his,
We'll give her the clicker to start, assuming she comes first, which we don't know. Janice, Karen. Doesn't say where that gets introduced. That's not.
I hate doing that at the last minute, Scott.
John, if you will keep your microphone muted for me, that would be really appreciated till you speak. Thank you.
I just sent an email out, so.
Maybe I also was gonna ask you, so, we are hosting an open house for our sort of key constituents in Louisville at Solid Light on April 30th. About the new, sort of to launch the new Humanity Gallery redesign. If, I was talking with, so Gloria is co-chairing that initiative. And I was thinking, since we're gonna be, I mean, it's just as far pretty much for you guys, but if you would like to join us, we'd love to have you. And if there's anyone sort of in the Lexington orbit who you think would appreciate knowing more about the project, who would wanna come, if it would be a good engagement for you and for us, we'd love to have you invite them as well. I can send you the information about it. Yeah, I'll share it with those. That's great. Perfect. I'm glad I was
all live.
just thinking of that. Yes.
All right, let's get started. You all ready back there? Great. I'm going to call the meeting of the 8th, where are we, the 9th meeting of the Antisemitism, Kentucky Antisemitism Task Force to order. Start taking roll. Jerry Abramson. Bill Altman.
Here.
Is there a way to turn that louder so we can hear? Bill, could you say that again?
Yep, I'm present.
Perfect. Dr. Bobber, Senator Berg, Gary Broadbent,
Hi, everyone.
Erin Ann Cole, Jonathan Goldberg,
Present.
Ralph Green, Mayor Greenberg, Mindy Haas,
President.
Nancy Hoffman,
Here on Zoom.
Rabbi Drakowitz,
Present.
David Kaplan, Reverend Scholl, Beth Solomon, Sarah, thanks Beth, Sarah Wagner, Leor Yaron, Chief Humphrey, Chief Weathers.
Here.
We've got a quorum and we will move forward to the first item of business, which is a continuing discussion on Holocaust education. We just, those of us here present in Cincinnati at the Holocaust and Humanities Center, the Wolf Holocaust and Humanities Center, we're just treated to an extraordinary jewel of the region. And we're took on a tour by the CEO, Jackie, who just spent a good hour and a half of her time kind of leading us through what happens up here, and it is quite moving. I encourage those of you task force members that have not been here yet to please come and to please bring people. It is something that not only is an important one-time experience, but I'm hopeful that it's just the beginning of a relationship that we have between the Kentucky Anti-Semitic Task Force and this wonderful institution in what I refer to as Northern Kentucky. So thank you so much, Jackie, for hosting us, and we want to have you around for the next part of the conversation because it's all connected. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Jan Fernheimer, who is and Lauren Hill, who are here from the University of Kentucky JHF Holocaust Education Program, to give us an update on where things stand. We're going to then talk about what we're going to be doing, what we're doing as a task force to help amplify the work, and then a number of members wanted to talk about the work that's being done in UK into the greater context of Holocaust education for all, and what else we might be able to do to promote not just Holocaust education, but anti-Semitism education.
Jackie was able to not only share some powerful stories from the 1930s and 40s, but also from the 2020s. And that's something that we'll be talking about during this discussion. But first, Jan and Lauren, if you want to come up here, the floor is yours to talk about what we've missed in the last few months.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you to everyone, both here in the room and also on Zoom. I don't know if you can hear. I'll just say thank you again, Jonathan. Thank you to Jackie, who we are very grateful to have a very productive meeting before the meeting to talk about deepening our partnership and collaboration. You tell me what I need to do to make things move.
And you're going to share our slides?
Oh, wonderful. Look, there they are in their own special little box. Thank you to everyone who's here in the room.
Get larger on the screen.
And thank you to everyone who is joining us by Zoom. We are also grateful to have co-director and co-collaborator Karen Petrone, who is joining us from afar as well. Thank you, Jonathan, for giving us the opportunity to share a very brief update about where we are in the work, which, like a wonderful snowball rolling down the hill, continues to grow and get bigger. And so we're just going to take a few minutes to kind of tell you where we are in this year and kind of how things are moving forward. So right now, in March 10th of 2025, we are in the middle of kind of moving into the capstone part of the experience for our third cohort of teacher leaders. So in total, we worked with 63 to date. We have 22 in the current cohort, and they are at that moment where they are really coming into their own as Holocaust educators and leaders, and they are developing and about to implement 11 workshops all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky, 10 in person and 1 virtual. To date, we have about 138 registrants so far. So we have some requests for help from you all to help us spread the word, and we will help you help us by sharing a link to do that. The first 250 folks who want and register are entitled to a $250 stipend for attending, although many elect to take professional development for a variety of reasons. At the moment, another thing that we're doing that's very exciting is we are currently open the call for applications, and we are recruiting for our 4th cohort, which will begin their work with us in the summer and continue all through next academic year. This year, something very unique and special to the initiative is that we have developed another role called the regional lead role. And this is a special opportunity for our really excellent, truly excellent and veteran teacher leaders who are not ready to leave us alone. They want to continue their work, deepening their work with us and also in their regional area. And they are doing tremendous and amazing work, both with the current teacher leaders who are in their respective geographic locales and also all across the state and Commonwealth. And one thing that we did this year that we think was really helpful for our teacher leaders, but also for teacher participants who, one of the 500 or so folks who have taken a workshop with us in the past 2 years, many in this current moment were feeling like they wanted some additional professional learning and education around how to mitigate anti-Semitism in the classroom. And so we developed 2 just-in-time workshops that took place throughout the fall. They took place 100% by Zoom, and we had more than 50 folks participate in those workshops, trying to keep with the timeliness of the moment. I'm going to turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Lauren, to share a little bit about our current partnerships and how those continue to deepen and grow.
Cool. Yes, much better. And so to recap, we have worked with 63 teachers, and we meet them twice a month over a whole academic year, virtually, to deepen their expertise around Holocaust education. They get to be really great at it, and then they offer local workshops for other teachers to participate in across the state. That's what we're registering for while we're opening applications for next year's cohort. And then those teachers, and we have over 500 of them now who have participated in workshops or who are teacher leaders, we try to pull in to our other partnerships. And if you've ever taught about the Holocaust or anti-Semitism, there are tons and tons of resources out there. So we try to make strategic partnerships and also operate not just as a provider, but also as a curator of these partnerships. So we work especially with those top 4 groups, the Jewish Federation of the Bluegrass, JFL, and our 2 local synagogues who have offered both financial support, but also a space, right? A place to hold events and some help in that way. But really also this space, we are trying to deepen our connection with you all, Lauren and Jackie, but the Kaltman Fellowship has really been sort of the jewel of our collaboration, where we send some teachers there and they always report back that it helps deepen their relationships to each other and the work. And we're hoping to continue to do that in even a more profound way. And we have teachers, primarily Kelly Booth and Elise Carter and Kimberly Thompson, who started here and then came to us, who have gone on to do some really remarkable things. Kimberly Thompson is going to be a U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum Fellow in this coming year. Elise won the Upstander Award last year. So we're just really working together to enrich our teachers' experiences. A great thing that happened, our work with TOLI, the Olga Lengel Institute for Holocaust and Human Rights, they are helping sponsor a week-long institute in Kentucky this year, and we are planning that in conjunction with the Association for the Teaching of Black History in Kentucky. We'll be holding that in Berea, and it is a week in June. And we're really excited about that. That'll offer 25 different teachers a week-long experience looking at the intersection of Jewish and Black history in Kentucky and elsewhere. We have very strategic partnerships specifically around curriculum design with the Louisville Ballet and the Louisville Orchestra. And that's a really exciting partnership. We're looking at using, you know, that there's tons of Holocaust curriculum out there nationally. So we wanted to take some time to create local work, just like this museum does, around local survivors. So with both the ballet and the orchestra, we're creating work around local survivor stories. So Kentucky students can hear about Kentucky stories rather than just national work, so they can walk their streets and see stories of people who've also walked those streets. And then also Abigail Miller, a name some of you might be familiar with. She's a lovely young woman who has sort of crafted for us a model that we're hoping to expand with the Kentucky Center for Performing Arts around artist residencies. Hers were funded by the Kentucky Arts Council, where she worked with 3 of our teachers, or is in process, going into their classrooms and creating a 3 or 4 day artist residency where she's working with their students to create art projects with them that reflect their learning around the Holocaust. And that model we're going to use with a grant to
We have support from the Kentucky Center
for Performing Arts to do something similar. She's helping us with that. We've also chatted a lot with Facing History and ourselves. They're doing some really great work around contemporary anti-Semitism and mitigating that in classrooms. We're all really trying to do that work right now. Jackie, you spoke so well about what that tightrope we're walking right now and really navigating the complexities of what that looks like. And a very exciting new partnership with Brandeis University and their Middle and High School Educators Institute on Israel and Anti-Semitism. Because Holocaust education and anti-Semitism education are not the same, and we are hoping next year to do a better job of doing both. We are sending 11 educators to their 2-week institute this summer, which will take place both at Brandeis and in Israel, to figure out how to really manage both of those things at once. If you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. And so one thing we would really very much like you to mark your calendars. We do a 3-day orientation for our new team. And this year that is July 30th, and 31st. And August 1st is a very special day, which is going to be an Interfaith Education Day. We're bringing in Brendan Murphy from the Bearing Witness Project. He's from Atlanta, and he is one of the premier educators and speakers on the Catholic history of anti-Semitism and where the church's role in that. And he's going to do a 3-hour workshop open to any of us on Friday afternoon, leading into that community dinner that many of you attended last year at TAI. And then, of course, the service that evening. And then it's co-sponsored by the Catholic Diocese of Lexington, as well as TAI, OZS, and JFB. So we're hoping that we can get as many people there as possible. He's a really remarkable speaker. We would love to talk about having a larger community event. The problem is that would be on Saturday, which is, of course, Shabbat. Although learning is a welcome Shabbat activity, it does create some challenges that we might wish to discuss more, but there's some great opportunities for interfaith learning that weekend that we would like to pull you all into. And Jan.
So as you can see, I'm going to move it back if I can. Maybe not.
Other button.
What? Oh yeah, that one. There we go. As you can see, our partnerships are growing and deepening, I might add. One of the most exciting things, and one of the people who's not listed here but should be, of course, is the Jewish Heritage Fund, which makes all of our work possible. Yes. And we are really grateful to their generous and continued support of the work of the initiative. We are really delighted that they have awarded us a fifth round of funding, which will continue to support most of the work that we are already doing. But I began by talking about the snowball that rolls down the hill and grows, and it grows and deepens and gets bigger and bigger. And so we are looking always for a broader network of financial support as well to help us continue to do that ever expanding and growing work, especially in the current moment, how important and necessary that work is. So as these partnerships continue to grow, we are also looking to make new partnerships and to deepen the ones that we have. And we're really excited about the possibilities for deepening some of them already. But that's where we'll leave you, is to mark your calendars for August 1st. We hope everyone in the room and on screen will be able to join us in person. This was the highlight for many of our teacher leaders last year, to be inside Jewish space, to see actual living, breathing Jewish community in action, and to engage with actual living, breathing Jewish communities over dinner, to tell them about why they're drawn to this work, how important and meaningful it is for them, and to hear from the community how valued and important that work truly is to them as well. So thank you for your time and for listening to this update. We'll turn it over to Jonathan now and ask you to help us identify some of those partners to continue to support the ever-growing work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, but much more importantly, thank you for the extraordinary work you're doing in our schools across the Commonwealth. Last 2 months ago, with our last meeting, we talked about Holocaust education in the arts, and there were some provocative discussions about what is the best way to approach Holocaust education, and unfortunately, we had not invited our UK team to that discussion. So I know Bill Altman has some questions, some ideas. I know Jackie shared some powerful testimony that coincides with what she's been learning as she's been teaching up here. So I wanted to get that stuff up, get that discussion going, and to have a nice talk about this, and talking in ways not just about what we're doing with the school systems, which is the most important segment, but also what we're doing with the general public. Jackie told us a powerful story from what was it this weekend, where there was a neo-Nazi group that was protesting in the Cincinnati area, and with their guns and their Nazi flags and swastikas, there was a group formed to protest the protesters, and a local rabbi wanted to participate with that group and was turned away because he was, quote, a Zionist. And it is, we are challenged from both sides of the political spectrum, and need to be able to try to address it in those ways. So, Bill, I would hesitate to put you on the spot, but you usually like being put on the spot. So I know you've got some strong feelings about this and some questions to ask. So maybe turn the floor over to you.
Yeah, I don't welcome it, but you never miss an opportunity to put me on the spot, so I'll respond to it. So one of the things that did come up at the last meeting, and I would ask the great team at UK to sort of share your perspective on this, because I know since the meeting you've been in touch with both the Louisville Orchestra and the ballet. So how, the work that you've done so far in co-creating a curriculum with the teachers in teaching the Holocaust, how do you view the arts as complementary? How do you think about that as an adjunct or an accelerator to your work?
You don't have to get up.
Can you hear me if I just?
Yes.
Bill, can you hear her?
Can you hear me if I just talk like a human? Oh, great, okay.
Can we move the microphones over there?
Here, or we can just pass it around, so yeah, I sing too, if you want, okay. So many of us are English teachers, and the arts and English in the classroom are indivisible, because so much of language arts is music and even dance, right? Because literature is in itself poetry. So to use the arts, especially our conversation with the orchestra was just remarkable. And let me get the name right. The Paul Kling, am I remembering?
Violin prodigy born in Krakow, Czechoslovakia.
Right. This story of this local man who was the orchestra leader, the violinist who'd survived from Theresienstadt, and the art that came out of that camp and his work here right in Louisville, and then the graphic novel that was written about it is just such a remarkable thing that students here, if we could like write a unit, it could be like a week-long in-depth plunge into his life and work with music and words and images that would be such a gift to a teacher and their students. It is so ripe for us. And talk about engagement, just an immersive experience. I was just so excited at the opportunity to engage with that. And then the ballet as well. We were able to see the ballet and experience it like close up, but even the images that they were able to film and the opportunity to hear about the survivor story is going to be so alive for students that this is exactly the kind of lesson planning that students need for the work to feel like in the moment for them and not just something that happened a gazillion years ago. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the brief answer to you, Bill, is that it's absolutely like indivisible from the work that we do, because the power of the arts to engage and to enliven the experience for students, whether it is the poetry or whether it is the graphic novel, whether it is being there. And we actually had teachers with their students at the ballet, thank you to the ballet. And they participate in the making of the documentary, and that's a testament to the power of that kind of work. So there are things that we are already doing, but also it's a commitment to the interdisciplinarity of the work that we do. And Lauren, sings the praise of the English language arts folks, which I think is absolutely important. But history folks use art too. Social studies teachers use art too, because that's how you begin to bring these stories, the power of the narrative, to make it come alive. And I think that's part of why it's so important. Anything else?
No, it did occur to me that, especially the intersection of the music and the graphic novel, and so many kids are into the graphic novel, art form and reading form, that did present a huge opportunity to create an interactive learning experience around this topic. So.
Yeah, we're very excited about that.
They said they're very excited about it, Bill. So, so are we.
Well, and we're hoping that like a teacher team next year, that it will be the focus of their year. So with a regional network lead who's an experienced lesson planner and preferably in the arts, and 2 of our teacher leaders, that is what they will focus on. So it's not a small thing. It will become their entire
The central work that they do.
right. And so it will be remarkable.
I know another discussion point that we've had and we've talked about that I want to get the perspective both of Jackie and as well as Jan and Lauren is we've all read or if not her book, we've all been reading Dara Horn's powerful words about anti-Semitism and her critique of how if we simply focus on the period of time in Europe in 1933 to 1945, were lots of years about anti-Semitism, where anti-Semitism wasn't as concentrated and bad, but was certainly around and evil. And during the tour, Jackie had talked about the different things this museum does to address anti-Semitism before and after, and I'd love for you to share as well the work you're doing with the humanity part of the museum to talk about how we can all be empowered to fight anti-Semitism and other evils. And then I'd like to hear from Jan and Lauren to talk about how your curricula addresses the non-war period as well.
Great, thank you. And it's great to see so many of you on Zoom, and would welcome you anytime you want to have a personal tour experience to come join us in Cincinnati at the center. We'd be privileged to give you a behind the scenes look. And thanks to Jonathan for your question. I think that this is, so when we think about our work, I often talk about it in the context of the particular and the universal. We have a particular mandate in Holocaust education to tell a particular story about a particular people, and that is the Jewish people and what happened to the Jewish people during the 1930s and 40s. We also have a universal mandate to make sure that this story is not just one that resonates about or for a particular group, that this is a story that has implications and ramifications for all of us as human beings throughout humanity. And so when I think about the work that we're doing, as we look at the next chapter, I actually don't think we have the luxury of being able to pick which is more important or where to focus. I think we have to double down on both aspects of that work. And so in the particular space related to the history of the Holocaust, but specifically how people think about who Jews are, how people think about what anti-Semitism is, in the context of many Kentucky and Ohio communities, a resource like ours may be the first time someone has met someone who's Jewish or has encountered a Jewish story or has heard the word anti-Semitism, let alone understood anything about the Holocaust. And so we take it very seriously, and our Chief Learning Officer, Lauren Karras, is here as well, and she leads a lot of this work. In all of our school partnerships, our teachers have a pre-lesson on anti-Semitism that they do before the kids come to the museum. We have modules in the museum that teach specifically about what is anti-Semitism, who are Jews, what does anti-Semitism look like today, how do we stand up against it, how do we address it? But we know that's not enough. And so we're working with some other resources. I know that Jan and your team at UK have been involved in this as well. There's some sort of cutting edge research that's happening to develop a more comprehensive K through 12 education framework that covers the broad scope of all things Jewish. So if we think about the limited time that teachers have to teach anything related to Jewish history, Holocaust, anti-Semitism, identity, religion, what is the total time they have, and how can we as a field, not just of Holocaust educators, but of Jewish heritage educators and of religious educators come together and say, what should a successful K through 12 experience look like? What are the learning outcomes across all of those aspects of content that a student needs to be able to understand when they graduate K through 12? So that framework is being built right now. And we plan to take that and actually implement it here in Cincinnati when the Auschwitz exhibition is here at the end of the year. So we have this amazing opportunity at scale with this traveling exhibition that's supposed to attract between 250, 350,000 people. And we know it is as traditional a Holocaust experience as they come, right? It is a play-by-play of what happened specifically at Auschwitz. And so we have the opportunity to actually take the insights of this framework that's being built around what else do people need to know about Jews and anti-Semitism outside of what happened during the Holocaust, and build a pre-lesson and a post-lesson for teachers and for students so that they get a more comprehensive picture that's anchored in this incredibly compelling and important and unique chapter of history, but that shares a broader context. We also hope to take the lessons from how that implementation goes with the Auschwitz exhibition and use what's successful in thinking about how we further enhance and adjust the museum that we have. So whether that's a giant interactive timeline that shows the history of Jewish identity and anti-Semitism before and after, and allows students to kind of scan through and see, wow, it's looked like a swastika, but it's also today looks like asking a descendant of Holocaust survivors who's a rabbi not to speak at a rally. And it's also looked like Jews being labeled as communists or capitalists in different circumstances. And oh, by the way, Jewish identity looks like it did in 1930s Poland, but it also looks like it does in Israel today, or in, Asia, or in South America, or in America. So we see ourselves, and I think it's just important to distinguish. This isn't the case all over the country. If you go to New York, there are resources where you can have a front door related to Jewish identity. You can have a front door on anti-Semitism or Holocaust. We don't have that luxury in our part of the world. And so students who are learning through our doors as the front door, whether that's with you all in Lexington or with us in Cincinnati, this is our shot. And we have a good shot because we are reaching teachers and students at scale. So that's the particular piece. And then Jonathan, I'll just briefly mention the universal sort of humanity work and then pass it to Jan and Lauren. So in the universal space, we're very committed to this concept of building upstanders. And the work of building upstanders is, we think, should not be a political agenda. We think the idea of understanding that we're all human beings and of understanding the dangers of dehumanization and seeking to humanize each other across all sorts of differences, political, by the way, differences included, is essential. And that is the lesson to come out of this chapter of history. And so we have a framework that's grounded in positive psychology's character strengths, 24 character strengths. It's been scientifically validated. There's a survey you can take, and it'll tell you what your top 5 strengths are. And so instead of saying, great, you come through our Holocaust gallery, and then we send you into our humanity gallery, and we're going to teach you about every ism in the book, we say, we're going to talk about, we've seen what the worst of humanity looks like. It's not enough just to say we're not going to be that. We should ask ourselves, what does it look like to be the best of humanity? And instead of focusing on necessarily identity differences, we're saying we all have a diverse set of character strengths that we bring to this conversation and to our work together. How do we understand what those character strengths are in each one of us and how to leverage them to see the humanity in each other and to stand up for our shared humanity in our world today? So it's a little bit of a different framework in the universal than many Holocaust assets that universalize with a human rights focus or other genocides, other isms. But we found it to be, I think, actually
more widely accessible. I can resource the YWCA with this framework, and the FBI, and the Republican legislature in Ohio, and grassroots groups on the ground here that are sort of more left-leaning, because it's about character strength. It's about the character that we bring to the conversation and how we need all of us. So I'm going to pass it across the table. Yes, please, yes. And this is our amazing board chair, Nancy Frank. Unless you want to say.
I wanted to introduce Nancy Frank, who is the board chair of this institution, and most importantly is a Kentuckian. So we're excited to have you join us, and appreciate you be on the tour. And if you had any words of wisdom on this subject, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, and I so appreciate the invitation to participate in this meeting. I think it's wonderful, all of the partnerships that you have, and of course, most importantly, right here, the opportunity with those partnerships is tremendous. And it's really opened my eyes too, to see, I'm very familiar with the northern part of the state, but to see all that's going on in the rest of the state of Kentucky. Wonderful work.
And just on that point, if the president can annex Canada, Governor Beshear can annex at least this part of Cincinnati. So we're going to try to get that done. All right, let me turn the floor over to Janet Lauren.
First, I just want to thank you, Jackie, for speaking so beautifully about the importance of the duality of the work that we do, and how important it is that we do both. And I love your metaphor of double downing on both the particular and the universal, because I think we share with you the challenge in threading that needle between the universal and the particular, but also the importance of doing that work. And it's something that has guided our entire structural approach to the initiative from the very beginning. Because like you, we know where we are, and that many of the teacher leaders, of the 63 teacher leaders who have worked with us to date, one has identified as Jewish. We don't ask who's had their first encounter with a Jewish person at orientation, but I bet if we did, there might be a few hands that get raised. And so when you're working with a population that, like you say, you are the front door, you are the gateway, is another way to frame it, or the opening of Pandora's box to all the richness and diversity and globalness of Jewish history writ large, both before, during, and after the Holocaust. That's a tall order to figure out how to get that into. I have 40 minutes in social studies to cover World War II. I have this much time in 7th grade, they do world religions, to do introduction to Judaism and how Judaism is different from Christianity in a 30-minute segment. And that's the tall order that our teachers are up against every single time they enter the classroom. And so that's why we've found it to be so useful and important to include things like Intro to Judaism. What is Jewish culture? Replete with a challah tasting experiential component during our orientation. And that is one of the more popular segments that gets re-taught over and over again at the various and sundry workshops all over the state, because it's something that stays with people. If you can do it, if you can hear it, you can see it, and you can experience something, then you're much more likely to remember it. And that's something that grounds our approach to almost all of the education that we're doing. So it starts with orientation, and that now the experience of actually being led through Jewish space and participating in a Shabbat dinner, a teaching service where they understand experientially something about the richness and the contemporariness of Jewish life being lived right now here in Kentucky. And right now that's just in Lexington, but Louisville folks, we're open to moving and to sharing that kind of experience across the Commonwealth. But it's also the importance of educating educators who have so many students that they interact with, and that they, not just students, but also educators, administrators, fellow teachers in their schools. And so once they've had this experience, then they become beacons of light along with us to shed the light on that kind of diversity of experience. And lastly, I think part of the reason why we have such a rich collaboration is because we so deeply share the importance of this work and the way in which we do this work, in terms of talking about teaching about action and the shared humanity that we all have, the wonderful potential for greatness and the wonderful potential dangerous potential, not wonderful, for its opposite. And why that resides in each and every human being. And the more that we can talk about it in those terms, and the more that you can empower people to feel like they can step in and change things for the good. I'm going to hand this over to Lauren, who actually has worked in the classroom very differently than me.
Right. So specifically, you asked about curriculum. Jewish life and culture and what is Judaism lives in 7th grade in our Kentucky State Standards. So to save us our home on the ride home conversation, we're working with Fayette County Public Schools to do an oral history day, how to use oral history in the classroom. We have a date and everything. We're going to do 6 hours and using oral history to tell what it's like to be a Jew in Lexington. So how do we do oral history? So how do kids craft their own oral histories? But then how do we use, because Jan has spent like her professional career here in Kentucky, doing and gathering Jewish oral history. So we have this rich archive. So how do we get our students?
33 narratives and counting.
So how do we use them in Kentucky schools for our students to access oral history that tells the story of what it is to be a Jew in Kentucky? And so Christy Watley in Fayette County and I are developing a program for how our students can, and Jan, how they can use those to tell the story of living, breathing Jews here in Kentucky. So you're welcome.
Well, I was going to tell you, I'll just give you the brief background of that project, which is another Jewish Heritage Fund sponsored project. Started in 2015, initially with a round of interviews of 25 to 30 ZBT brothers who were at the University of Kentucky in the 50s. Many of whom had gone to war, had come back to war. They experienced the the university before it desegregated. It's top of mind at the moment because the now late, I'm blanking on his name, but he just passed away, Jean Duval, led all kinds of really important civil rights work. He organized the counter protest in Skokie, but he was the president of Hillel and the president of ZBT when he was a college student at UK, and he had come all the way from New York. And his story sort of encapsulates the power of what it means to be impacted by your place, but also the inspiration that you can offer to others of the kind of meaningful work that he did. He had an entire career building relations, rebuilding communities across Germany, and doing that work. And he was just one. Almost all of the brothers who we interviewed in that initial round have now passed, but their stories live on in those oral histories. And so the work that Lauren and Christy are going to do to work with Lexington students to engage in the next phase of oral history teaches the students not only that they get to participate in history, but they get to be the arbiters of it in creating what counts as part of that historical record. And so this is in keeping with that experiential and very powerful part of the kind of pedagogy that we engage in.
Well, and pairing that with bringing in Brendan Murphy and that whole history of anti-Semitism, dating back to before the birth of Jesus, is I think really an important step in drawing that whole through line and not just starting in 1929 or whenever we really think about it. So this comes from a really reflective place. This is the beginning of our 4th year. So what are we doing well, but what do we really need to improve? And Jonathan, when you ask that question, that's what we need to get better at. Holocaust is yes, but now how do we do this to really include this sense of fighting? How do you fight anti-Semitism? Yes, and then really understanding that whole through line, and that's what we want to improve.
Yeah, the richness and beauty of diverse Jewish lives in and all around Kentucky.
Thank you. Any members of the task force would like to comments or questions on this subject? All right, well, I hear none. We've got 45 more minutes, so if you think of something later, interrupt me. This is an important subject. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Interface Security Collaborative. And let me turn the floor over to, I forgot something important on this as well. So this summer, we should be expecting to have the legislature in the interim period, once they leave from their active session right now, to start considering our request for $2 million annual contribution to supplement this UK program. And I believe I mentioned at the last meeting that I've had meetings with members of both House and Senate leadership, and both were very encouraging and enthusiastic. One of the House leaders' son went through a UKJHF program at his high school and was moved and very favorably impressed by it. So I think we're going to have a great bipartisan audience for that, and with the hopes that when the powers that be do their budget next year, that we will have our monies included. I've also met with the Commissioner of Education, Robbie Fletcher, and he is also a supporter of the program and trying to figure out best ways to work between the KDE, Kentucky Department of Education, and our programs. So we're slow but steady, but am encouraged about the long-term future. So let's move on to Interfaith Security Collaborative. There's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and this was Bill Altman's brainchild. So let me let him kind of share what he thinks is going to has happened and what he thinks is going to happen.
I don't know if Charles is in attendance today, or
he's
or
not.
Josh.
No.
Okay, so just to remind everyone, several task force meetings ago, when we focused on safety and security, one of the ideas to come out was to create a interfaith collaborative on safety and security, so that we could both team up with other faith-based communities who face similar threats to ours, and also share all that we've learned in having to beef up safety and security while maintaining an opening and welcoming environment in our community centers and institutions of faith. And so, we hosted a meeting with, I think, 80 faith-based leaders the governor invited, and there was enthusiastic support to create such a collaborative. So, Charles Booker and Josh Keats have really taken the lead on this and have done some really good work, and, decided that the best way to move this along would be to convene a smaller advisory group reflecting the range of faith-based communities. That group has been formed, and at the invitation of the governor. And you'll recall that one of the major possibilities here, or attractions to this, would be there are many federal government grants for nonprofit communities for safety and security, particularly faith-based institutions. And we in the Jewish community have been able to avail ourselves of those funds to really jumpstart our work. And so and also have developed the highly technical expertise required to first do an assessment of your a risk assessment of your facility, which is a prerequisite to applying for federal grants. But also, the process applying for federal grants is not for the faint of heart. It's very, very detailed and technical, but we have a lot of expertise. So the thought was, a great way to start this is really to focus on two things. One is to share training resources on safety and security, and we have a lot of materials for that. And number two, really to mobilize as an interfaith community around seeking grants, particularly for institutions that don't have other sources of revenue, to do some of the basic safety and security work. So that was very appealing to everyone. Well, as things go today, those funds are hung up in all of the dysfunction that's happening in Washington about federal funds flowing for various programs and here and there. It's not like they've been cut and it's not clear what is going to happen to them, but they have been hung up. And so that is a an impediment, a significant impediment to our, moving forward with this interfaith safety and security collaborative. We haven't abandoned it. The interest is high, but we're a little bit cautious about launching it when the uncertainty around these federal funds, which are really important to many of the organizations who have come around the table, until that is resolved, we're trying to figure out, whether we can go ahead with it or whether we wait until there's more clarity around that. So, Jonathan, I think that is basically where we stand.
No, good summary, and our steering committee will be meeting sometime in the next few weeks to talk about these issues, and I'm very hopeful that there's a lot of budget cutting going on at the federal level, but one subject matter that has been pretty strong bipartisan support, certainly not unanimous support, but large majorities of both the Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill is anti-Semitism. So I'm hopeful that as we pursue this, that there will be funding available once the chaos at the beginning of this stuff dies down a little bit. So we'll keep our eyes open. Yeah.
On that note, I have actually something to share about that might be helpful.
So, Bill, in Ohio, we have been successful, and I'd be happy to connect you with sort of the Federation Systems lobbyist in Ohio who has managed to create a state grant program that mirrors the federal nonprofit security grant program. And that is still, we actually just received a significant grant through the state program to support exactly what you're talking about. So I know that state resources are tight as well, and some of this flows from the federal government through the state, but this is state budget dollars that have been allocated now for, I want to say, the past like 5 to 8 years, to the tune of millions of dollars that are accessible for local organizations in Ohio, nonprofit, faith-based, and more accessible, we found, than the federal grants. Even under the best of circumstances, federal grants sometimes are cumbersome to apply for and secure, and the Ohio ones are a little less so. So if it's helpful, you seem like you're nodding like you're aware of this, but I'd be happy to connect you with our resource who can share more about how that program was established.
Yeah, it was the first call we made because he is a larger than life figure. And, not to contradict my friend Jonathan, I mean, we may want to become part of Southern Ohio.
That's on the incentives of the moment, I guess.
Well, my wife is Canadian, so I've given some thought to that as well. All right, well, great. Any other comments or questions about the security initiative? All right, well, let's move on. The next item on the agenda is what's next. We have had 9 meetings. Now this is our 9th meeting, and have had some great discussions and have begun really starting to have some meaningful accomplishments. But I reviewed the governor's executive order that formed this back in December of 23 and realized that there are a number of items that we haven't touched yet. And some of them we've done a great job of talking about, others that we have not even discussed. So I'm going to put on the screen the items from the executive order. I'm going to read them to you, and then I'd like to kind of get your input on what we should be doing next. If you could pick, what the next few meetings of this task force should be doing, I want to get your input, because to date it's really been Charles and myself coming up with the agenda, and I would love your all's help in setting the agenda. So I'll read these. Identifying and acknowledging the growing threat of anti-Semitism in the Commonwealth by conducting a comprehensive review of the state of anti-Semitism within Kentucky. B, strengthening community relations by identifying and creating opportunities for points of connection between state and local governments and the local Jewish community. C, engaging with the community and providing public officials across Kentucky with recommendations and support for combating anti-Semitism and hate in all its forms. D, assessing the state of anti-Semitism and Holocaust education in Kentucky, making recommendations regarding what additional programs are needed. E, advising on training programs for law enforcement relating to the investigation and prosecution of hate crimes. F, assessing existing state programs relating to education, digital media literacy, identifying gaps, studying efficacy, and planning for enhanced educational offerings. G, working with the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights to ensure educational resources are available to employers and employees regarding all forms of discrimination and hate and however to address them. And H, supporting local cross-community and interfaith solidarity building projects. It's a lot, and it's a very large agenda, and certainly nothing that we will be able to accomplish in a year's time. But this body is going to be in effect for quite some time. So I would like to get your all's input on what do you think of these we should work on next. So if you could put the screen on the Zoom meeting. Great. All right. Who from our task force would like to have some thoughts in terms of what would be a good set of topics of discussion for the next several meetings? Gary?
Jonathan, I think it'd be helpful to talk about the law enforcement aspect of that. Just listening to the list, I think we've touched around a lot of those other issues, but that may be one that's ripe for review.
All right. That's a good idea. Who else? Anybody here in the room? Mindy, do you have a thought?
I don't have the list in front of me, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let me look at it first.
Hi, Gary. I certainly agree with you. Now that I'm staring at Chief Weathers, I think it's important that we do educate our law enforcement a little bit better, whether it's bringing them here to the museum so they can kind of get this sense of what our past look like, as well as, if not the actual law enforcement, maybe the officers that work in the schools with our kids, so they have an understanding of what anti-Semitism looks like or feels like for our students. So I'm going to leave it at that for now, and I'm going to look at this list a little bit more. Does anybody else have any input? Okay, I'm coming over to Chief.
In our basic academy, all officers are required to go through hate crimes training, and it does include anti-Semitism in that. I was trying to look at how often we have to repeat that. It's either going to be 2 years or every 3 years. It has to be repeated, and I think some academies focus on different things, but I can see maybe during that training, and it's our in-service training, which is 40 hours. And I can see where it would probably be a good thing to incorporate it into that reoccurring in-service training. We can't do the same thing during the year, but we can bring in different aspects of it. So that's something we might want to look at and talk to the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council about.
Since I have the microphone, everybody's like, don't give Jackie the microphone. We do some of this work in Ohio. We were talking about this on the tour. We have a training, an upstander training that's certified by the Ohio Police Officers Training Academy in Columbus. So we could certainly build something, adapt it for use in Kentucky, and make that as accessible as possible. It wouldn't necessarily require folks to come on site here in Cincinnati. We could come to you, or we can work with our partners in Lexington to put something together. So we stand ready to resource that in whatever way would be helpful.
Anybody from the, maybe Scott, if you could put the back on the screen again, the 2 pages of.
Jonathan?
Yeah, it's that one and the one before it. Yeah. Yep. Is that Nancy?
Yes.
Please go
I'm
ahead.
looking at H, the supporting local cross-community and interfaith solidarity building projects. I know that interfaith, you're working on security.
But to take that a little bit further, I think we don't help our cause by talking about anti-Semitism without also talking about racism and Islamophobia. It's as if we're saying that what we're going through is more important than other groups, and I think we need to focus on that as well.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Let me turn on my screen. Hi, this is Rabbi Chotner. I was also thinking of number H as well. In addition to what was just said by Nancy, I know that here in Louisville, we did, with the help and the sponsorship of JHFE, some interfaith work between the Black and Jewish communities, which was excellent. And I also think that there's a lot of room to increase in that area. And we have a lot of, different religions here, and I think that that would be something important on the list to put towards the top, in addition to working with law enforcement.
Sounds great.
Can I ask a clarifying question? I've missed a few meetings, so perhaps this has been covered, but what have we thought around F in digital media literacy? Have we done any work in that regard yet?
No, we have not.
I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there. It's something that we've been kicking around here at the center. And so, if this is kind of the impetus for getting us to move on that, I would be interested in exploring that more. I feel like that's so relevant and important right now for our kids.
Who would we bring to, it's a very important idea and issue, but who would we bring to come talk to us about those kinds of issues?
Well, at the national level, I think there are a couple organizations that we could think about. At the local level in Ohio, there's an organization in Columbus.
On media literacy?
Yeah, do you know off the top of your head? I would need to do a little Googling, but I have some possibilities there that I could bring to the group. If you want me to gather some resources around that. There are people who are doing great work in this area that we could lean on. So let me go back to
that would be wonderful.
Yeah, if anyone else knows of. Yeah, sure. Love that. Yeah.
It's my home department.
Oh, well then, I don't know if I need to go back to the resource list that I have for teachers. When we have an expert right here, yeah.
Yeah, we've got wonderful folks who specialize in all different areas, so that, I feel like that would be a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I also think we need to be looking at B as well, which is strengthening community relations by identifying and creating opportunities for new points of connection between state, local, and governments and local Jewish community. I think there's a disconnect, and maybe Senator Burke can help me with this. There's a lot of bills out there in Kentucky that are relatable or that have some type of anti-Semitism undertones or are directed towards the colleges. And I think that as a committee as a task force, we should be on top of that and really look at how to advocate for or against. I think that's really important. I think we missed an opportunity this year, particularly with one bill, but as many of us that were able to speak on behalf of it, we were there. But there are so many, and they just keep creeping up on us, and hopefully we could get a seat at the table. Senator Berg, what do you think?
Actually, I think that's an excellent idea, and I was going to try to jump in here. And I don't know how this would work. I don't know what this would look like, but I could use help
educating our state electeds as to what actually anti-Semitism is. I've had conversations this week with a couple of new senators, and I've had to explain to them that, George Soros controlling the judiciary system is actually an anti-Semitic meme. They don't even know that. I mean, they're really talking to me about how George Soros controls the judicial system. Those are the type of things it would be really helpful. And I've called that out in committee before, and I've been totally shot down. I mean, this goes over and over and over again. It would be helpful to have somebody besides me and the one rabbi who tends to show up the most in Frankfurt, educating our electeds, honestly, as to how we see the requirement for religious freedom, which is coming under attack, guys. I mean, we just, passed some bills this session that are bad bills that will allow anybody who seems to think that somebody has required them to do something against their quote unquote religion to have an individual cause of action. I don't think that the majority of people I work with have really any understanding, honestly, of who we are or what our community cares about. I'll be honest.
So do you think it would be an advantage to invite them to a program that we're doing, such as, or the program that is happening in August with the Heritage, I'm sorry, I was going to say UK Jewish, yeah, all the acronyms, people I truly care about. Or do we, set up a meeting, where like the committee comes in and engages and does a presentation and really bring the experts to them? What would that look like?
If you're going to make any headway, you're going to have to bring the experts to them. None of these people, and I have made multiple efforts, invited them to all sorts of, Zoom links that they could join us in services, that they could join us in discussions. Nobody shows up. Nobody shows up. We need to go to them, and we need to establish an identity as a community, as an educated community that is involved in this state and participates in this state, what our expectations are, who we are, what we care about.
Thank you.
I don't know if I need that or not, but you don't need it?
Well, we're doing what, right?
Okay. So what we found here is that I'm going to go back to our front door positioning as Holocaust educators, because I think it is still, as of last check, universally acknowledged that the Holocaust was a bad thing, and that it happened a long time. Well, some would say is a long time ago, right? We're coming at this from a place of history, and it's like a little less hot than diving right into the contemporary. We're able, and because, speaking on behalf of the center, we have a footprint in Cincinnati that's part of our civic resources, in the museum center, that's grounded in this need to educate. And, we're not a Jewish advocacy organization here. We're a public education organization. And so we have found a lot of success in engaging politically diverse groups with, come see the museum, learn the history, and we kind of, with the peas and carrots on the side, help to infuse some of the more contemporary understandings around anti-Semitism. And I think we've seen some light bulbs go off, both on, left-leaning groups that don't get some pieces of it and right-leaning groups that don't get other pieces of it. So I would just endorse, whether that's through, the folks in Lexington, any way we can be helpful, or some collaboration. I think that Holocaust education is actually an effective entry point for this conversation. And we found that we can do it with a fair measure of credibility across political lines, and that people actually do have some epiphanies.
Guys, let me just add along those lines real quickly. David Robert Stivers, just shared on the floor this week that his father liberated Dachau.
No way.
Which I had never known. Those are the type of things, guys, I think if we can find relationships with these people and reach out and try to establish those, that we may get them to be a little more sympathetic to what we're trying to say.
That's a real revelation. I've known Robert for 30 years and did not know that about him.
I did not know it either, yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, we need to get him. We need to get him engaged in this Holocaust education project. I think that's at a minimum. That's really good information. Who else has anything they want to share on this subject? I think we've gotten 4 or 5 ideas, and I'll talk to the governor's office about kind of putting them in order and establishing meetings around them. All right. Well, the last thing I wanted to share is the and I would love Senator Berg if you could share your thoughts first. SJR Senate Joint Resolution 55, and we can put this on the screen. The next item has been introduced. I think it's passed one of the bodies.
That's the Senate. Yes, it's already passed by chamber.
And there was some, and I won't go into detail, there was some concerning language in the original draft of this that I know a number of folks on this Zoom were involved in helping reshape. It is not within our purview to endorse or oppose legislation. That's not something for us to do, but I would like to kind of get folks' thoughts about this. And if you could turn to the next page, because I think, the whereas is, okay, the next page after that. So this does a number of things. It tells the page right before it at the very bottom, that using the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism to have the post-secondary education institutions adopt that. The next page, please. And that students are notified about their rights and how they can address harassment, and that Jewish groups are in service to Jewish students are made aware of those. There you see at the bottom, number 3, the defunding and disbanding of any student organization that's been found by institution to providing material support or resources to a designated terrorist organization. And could move to the next page. And then collection of data about reports of anti-Semitism and reports of civil rights violations. So this is aimed at combating anti-Semitism on campus. And let me turn the floor over to Senator Berg if she wants to kind of share her thoughts about this.
I voted yes on this resolution, even though I did speak on the floor that there's more than one side to this story. And, we had been in a meeting last week with Jews who were anti-Zionists. And so I felt, first of all, that I had to acknowledge to my coworkers that just being anti-Zionist doesn't mean you're anti-Semitic. Something that most of them had honestly never heard before. They were extremely surprised to hear that. I cannot tell you how many people have come up to me and said they never knew that. And I was also concerned that this resolution was being brought by the Liberty Caucus with intentions that are somewhat different, I believe, than at least my own. I don't want to speak for the task force as a whole, because there's way more than one side to the rise in anti-Semitism in this country. So I did my best to address it. I could not, under any circumstances, vote against the resolution. It has some good things. We did try to improve it so that it didn't limit, like the original one excluded Hillel from our campuses, that type of stuff. These things are being written by people that just don't have much of an understanding of what Jewish campus life is like here in the state. Any questions? I'll try to answer them. It was not easy for me. This was not an easy resolution for me to address.
What other members of the task force would like to share their thoughts? Anybody? Yep, question from Jackie.
How, Senator Berg, I'm wondering, thanks for the context on this, and just for sort of my own understanding about these dynamics, which are a little different in Ohio, but probably not much different. How is the legislature reconciling the prioritization of anti-Semitism with the broader sort of crackdown on DEI?
Okay, guys, I have to be very honest with you. The people, the group that brought this anti-Semitism resolution, I have been told by multiple sources at this point, their motivation is the preservation of the state of Israel, which is a requirement for them to go to heaven. So this is really all motivated in preparation for the rapture. Okay? None of this is an actual motivation to understand who Jewish people are, what we care about, why we would be opposed to things like disbanding diversity, inclusion, and equity programs. The woman who brought this resolution is the same woman who is filing legislation in this state to ban books. So anybody who's finding comfort in this is misguided.
I do want to, and I really appreciate your opinion on this, and I don't know 90% of the personalities, but I do know that there are a number of very well-meaning
without
legislators,
question.
both Democrats and Republicans, who supported this and supported for the right reasons. So I don't doubt that there are some that have the wrong reasons, but I do want to get on the record.
There's no question in my mind that there are good people that if they were approached in the right way, we could really make great strides in education as to who the Jewish community is and what we stand for in this state, what we care about in this state. It's just there's a lot of people playing in this field that don't all have the best intentions in my mind for the community as a whole. And a lot of misinformation in both the Democratic and the Republican Party as to who represents whom and what we care about. So, I mean, all told, guys, an anti-Semitism resolution on the floor is a good thing, I think. You just have to be careful what they put in it, what their intentions are, and why they're doing it.
In my when I was started off in politics a long time ago, I was taught that there's no such thing as a political enemy. There are political friends, and there are people that can be friends in the future. So even those who have a very, and those people who believe in the rapture, I give them credit for their personal belief. They can.
Oh, believe me, I thanked the sponsor profusely on the floor. Profusely.
Yeah, so it's issues like this, and again, going back to Holocaust education, where we can really build bridges, even though if we have a different view on 99% of issues, even if we are approaching Israel in a different way, that we can find common ground, whether it's on a resolution like this or on Holocaust education. So I'm the eternal optimist, and 30 years of being in politics has not made me that cynical to give that up. So. Who else has any other thoughts? All right. Well, I think we had another great discussion, and even better for those of us who got to spend an hour and a half touring this facility. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion from Mindy. Is there a second? Second from the chief. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you so much, Jackie and Nancy and Scott and the whole crew here for putting on, Laura, for putting on a great event for us. And we will see everybody in 2 months.
Thank you.